Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
Albert's voice was icy as he stepped out of the shadows, clutching the torn contract. "What the hell is going on?" Naomi's face turned pale as she stammered. "Albert, it's not what it looks like." Jack smirked, but faltered under Albert's glare. "Using my wife, my family's money, and teaching my son to mock me? You think I'll just let it slide?" Albert's cold laughter silenced the room. "You underestimated the wrong man." The betrayal, lies, and shattered trust all spiraled toward a storm no one could escape. Who truly wins when trust is already broken? Chapter 1. The late afternoon sunlight slanted through the suburban cul-de-sac, illuminating a row of neatly trimmed lawns and cars glinting in the glow. Albert Griffin maneuvered his battered Ford F-150 into the driveway of his two-story home, muscles tight from a grueling day overseeing a commercial renovation project. Though not a formal military man, he possessed the calm, methodical demeanor of someone who thrived on structure. He paused, letting the engine idle for a moment, thinking about the next day's tasks, vendor calls, equipment scheduling, plus wrapping up the final punch list on the Elmwood Elementary expansion. His company might be small, but it had a rock-solid reputation for meeting deadlines with unwavering precision. Exhaling, he turned the truck off, gaze drifting to the front door. Usually by 6 p.m., he'd expect to see Naomi, his wife of 15 years, finishing dinner prep or flipping through her design magazines. She occasionally did marketing consulting from home, but more often managed a local car dealership's brand efforts. Their 15-year-old son, Brian, might be straggling in from soccer practice or gaming with friends. The typical bustle of a comfortable middle-class family. But tension coiled in Albert's stomach. He'd felt it building for months. Phone calls Naomi took in hushed corners, extended client dinners, pricey new outfits that didn't align with her usual style. And Brian, once a cheerful kid, had grown aloof, brandishing brand new sneakers or gadgets without explaining how he'd paid for them. Shaking his head, Albert dismissed the swirl of suspicions. "Don't be paranoid," he muttered. He got out, grabbed a small stack of blueprints from the passenger seat. But a slight tremor ran through him. He'd learned to trust his instincts over years of dealing with sneaky subcontractors and hidden building issues. Something was off. Inside, the house was uncharacteristically quiet. The aroma of curry drifted from the kitchen, meaning Naomi had started dinner. He set the blueprints down carefully, scanning the foyer. The expensive mirror Naomi had insisted on buying last month reflected his tensed posture, a posture he typically showed only at demanding job sites. He called out, "Naomi? Anyone home?" No immediate response, but then he heard footsteps upstairs, lighter ones, probably Brian's. Deciding to toss his dusty boots in the mudroom, he made a mental note to greet his wife. But as he stepped into the kitchen, his phone vibrated. A text from his friend, Valentina, a part-time consultant who occasionally helped with interior design for Albert's projects. Valentina, 6:02 p.m. "Need to talk. Found something on social media about Naomi. Call me." Albert frowned. This fed his unease. He typed back, "Albert. At home now. Might call later. Everything okay?" Valentina's reply, "Not sure. Heard rumors from dealership staff about Naomi and someone." He inhaled sharply, pocketing the phone. The someone was likely Jack Wilson, a high-level finance manager at the dealership. Over the past months, Naomi had dropped Jack's name a few times in casual remarks, subtle but repeated. "He's so good at networking. He introduced me to some local big shots. He's got unstoppable ambition." Albert never liked the guy's vibe, though they'd only met briefly. Just then, the front door opened and slammed. Brian's voice floated from the foyer. Mom? I'm home. Then, seeing Albert's boots in the mudroom, he added, Dad's here? Moments later, Naomi emerged from the hallway, pushing her chestnut hair behind her ear, wearing a sleek blouse that shimmered under the kitchen lights. Albert, you're back early. Everything okay at the Elmwood site? She forced a smile. He studied her face, noticing a flicker of something surprise, wariness. Went smoothly, so I knocked off an hour early. He tried to keep his tone casual. Where were you? She tucked her hair behind her ear again, a habitual gesture. Oh, just finishing a quick meeting at the dealership. Jack had some new marketing pitch. Then I picked up groceries. Albert nodded slowly, chest tight. Got it? The tension hung thick. He decided not to push. Not yet. Brian trudged in, wearing brand-new trainers Albert hadn't authorized. Dad, can I get $50 for dinner with the guys after soccer tomorrow? We're hitting that new bistro near campus. Albert raised an eyebrow. Didn't I transfer your usual allowance last week? Brian shrugged, avoiding eye contact. It's gone, okay? I've been busy. Please? A wave of frustration prickled. We'll discuss it later. Right now, help your mom set the table. Brian rolled his eyes, but complied. Naomi lingered near the stove, stirring curry, not meeting Albert's gaze. The sense of hidden secrets weighed on him. He resolved to keep watch, gather clues. No confrontation yet. A telling discovery. After dinner, Brian vanished to his room. Naomi claimed she had an online meeting with Jack, ironically enough about finalizing a marketing deck, so Albert roamed the house, waiting, mind-spinning. He ended up in the living room where Brian's phone lay charging, screen face up. Normally, Albert wouldn't invade privacy, but a new message popped up. Kevin. Dude, Jack letting us use the Lexus tomorrow? So stoked. Love these test drives. Bet your dad never does this for you, El Mao. Albert's gut clenched. The mention of Jack and how he apparently let Brian drive fancy cars. Another sign. Brian had been bragging about new experiences, always with someone named Jay. So it was indeed Jack. He exhaled, tentatively picking up the phone. This might cross a line, but he needed answers. The lock screen showed more partial messages from Kevin referencing Jack's new approach. Your mom said yes? Don't worry about your dad. Fury coiled in Albert's belly. So Brian was enthralled by this cool stepdad figure, apparently, while mocking Albert's down-to-earth style. He set the phone down, mind racing. The next day, he'd talk to Valentina, maybe glean more about the rumors swirling at the dealership. He felt a pang of betrayal at his own son siding with an interloper. But the greatest betrayal might be from Naomi, letting Jack become a father figure to Brian behind Albert's back. The next morning, Albert stepped away from the construction site for an hour to grab coffee with Valentina at a quiet cafe. She was in her early 30s, stylish, yet unpretentious, with a direct manner that Albert found refreshing. Valentina stirred her latte, eyes concerned. Albert, I hate to bring bad news, but people at the dealership talk about Naomi and Jack. They're going on these business trips together. Some even claim they've seen them hugging or leaving a hotel lounge late. Albert's jaw tightened. Could be rumors, but it aligns with my suspicions. Last night, I saw texts on Brian's phone about Jack letting him drive fancy cars. My own wife apparently letting that man overshadow me. Valentina lowered her voice. I also heard Naomi's been championing Jack's expansions. They talk about high-end clientele, maybe leveraging your family's credit for some deals. Don't know the specifics, but I sense something big. Possibly they're funneling resources from the dealership into personal ventures. Or maybe Naomi's using your name, like guaranteeing things in ways you haven't authorized. Albert's eyes went cold. If that's so, they're crossing into financial betrayal territory. I might need your help verifying. You know a few finance people, right? She nodded. Yes. Let me quietly check if Naomi's or Jack's accounts have unusual patterns. Albert exhaled gratitude. Thank you. I sense I'll need proof before confronting them. If Naomi's draining our funds or forging signatures, I must act swiftly. That evening, Naomi came home beaming about a small investment opportunity she discovered. She mentioned that Jack introduced her to an upcoming property flip, something about, we put in a little capital, we get a big return. Albert forced a neutral expression, playing dumb. He asked how much. She dodged specifics, praising Jack's instincts. Albert realized she was on the verge of funneling family money into Jack's scheme. Possibly the college fund for Brian, the boy's future at risk, all for Naomi's enthrallment with Jack's illusions. He gritted his teeth, but maintained a facade of mild curiosity. Well, let's see the details soon. If it's viable, we can talk about it rationally. She nodded, relieved he wasn't rejecting it outright. He excused himself, heart pounding. The plan was taking shape. Let Naomi dig deeper, reveal more. Then, strike. Chapter 2. Days melted into a tense routine. Naomi and Jack texted often while Brian bragged about test drives and VIP events to his friends. Albert, pretending ignorance, quietly monitored bank accounts. He noticed small but growing charges, fancy lunches, golf sessions. Meanwhile, Valentina fed him scraps of insider data from the dealership. One day, Naomi returned wearing a new gold watch, suspiciously expensive. Brian sported brand new sneakers again. The next morning, a local bank branch phoned to confirm a requested withdrawal from the education fund. Albert told them to freeze any transaction without his explicit signature. They complied. He confronted Naomi that night in a measured tone. The bank called about a withdrawal from Brian's college fund. Did you authorize it? She blinked, feigning casual ignorance. Oh, that's probably just me moving money for that investment. Don't worry, it's a short-term reallocation. Albert raised an eyebrow. We agreed the fund was strictly for Brian's tuition. No short-term gambles. Naomi waved a hand. But Jack says it's a guaranteed profit. We can replenish the fund soon. Brian's scholarship might handle half his tuition anyway, right? Albert's stomach lurched. Scholarship? They had no guarantee. Naomi, this is reckless. If you proceed, it undermines Brian's future. She stiffened. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. He let it drop for now, though anger simmered. He decided the moment for direct confrontation was nearing. One fateful afternoon, Brian rushed out for soccer, leaving his phone in the living room. A string of messages from Jack W. pinged. Remember, don't tell your dad about Saturday's plans. I'll pick you up with the M6. We'll do a test run at that private track. Show you real horsepower. Brian responded, Yeah, Dad's clueless. Mom says he doesn't get modern business. Let's do it. Can I drive again? Jack, of course. You got natural talent. We'll talk about your college apps, how my connections can open doors. Just keep quiet around your old man. Albert read this, heart pounding with fury. The man was grooming Brian to see him as the father figure, sowing contempt for Albert. The final lines stung. Your dad's old school. Networking matters more than any grunt labor. That's 2024 for you. Albert clenched his jaw. Fine. Let them think that. He'd show them how old school, cunning outmaneuvers flashy illusions. That evening, Valentina arrived at Albert's request. Together, they combed through prints of bank statements. She pointed to flagged transactions. Naomi funneling a chunk of savings into Somerset Consulting, an entity Jack set up. Over $50,000 in the last month alone. They also saw attempts to contact the college fund. "This is borderline fraud," Valentina muttered. "She's using marital assets without your knowledge. And if Jack's entity is a shell for something shady, you might lose everything." Albert's jaw tightened. "Thanks to you, now I have the evidence. She's crossing lines. Time to safeguard the rest." They devised a plan. First, quietly secure all major business accounts under solely Albert's name. Remove Naomi's joint access. Then approach a top-notch divorce attorney. If Naomi was sinking them into Somerset, that might be used in court to prove financial irresponsibility. Albert decided to act swiftly. The next morning, he visited an old friend, Brian Foster, coincidentally the same name as his son, but older, an attorney acquaintance, at a local law firm. After reviewing the statements, Brian Foster said, "We can freeze marital assets until further clarity. You can also request an injunction preventing her from withdrawing more, but do you want that big A confrontation now?" Albert weighed it. "I'd prefer to gather a bit more, but as soon as she tries another withdrawal from the college fund, we pounce." Meanwhile, Brian, the son, wore an air of arrogant independence. He boasted about upcoming events with Jack. He brushed off Albert's attempts to talk about the real cost of things. "Mom says you're stuck in old thinking. She gets how to hustle in modern times," Brian retorted one night at dinner. Albert calmly responded, "We'll see what happens when illusions crash, son. Hard work outlasts fast talk." Brian rolled his eyes. "Sure, whatever." Naomi, noticing the friction, tried to hush Brian, but half-heartedly. She still admired Jack's vision, so she wasn't about to defend Albert's viewpoint strongly. The rift deepened. One weekend, Brian defied Albert's direct rule by skipping a family event. Instead, he hopped into Jack's borrowed M6, driving off. Naomi said nothing, only a flicker of guilt in her eyes. Albert realized his own son was siding with the man targeting Naomi's affections. That level of betrayal stung. Chapter 3. One chilly Wednesday evening, everything came to a head. Albert had arrived home early again. He found Naomi's car missing, Brian's phone on the countertop once more. This time, the screen displayed frantic messages. Kevin. "Dude, your dad found out about the withdrawals? Mom says the bank froze something. Jack's pissed." Brian. "He can't freeze it. Mom says we still have the credit line. Dad's so clueless." Kevin. "Jack claims your dad is in for a shock. Something about taking a bigger share of the dealership's new investment?" Albert scrolled upward, seeing references to Mom is meeting Jack at the real estate site. They might co-sign a loan behind Dad's back. We gotta keep it hush. Rage flashed. So Naomi was doubling down, forging a cosign for Jack's property flip. Enough was enough. He dialed Naomi's number, voicemail. He dialed Brian's phone from his own, ignoring the fact he was physically holding Brian's phone. Furious, he grabbed his truck keys, deciding to track them. He recalled a rumor about a vacant commercial lot near the county line that Jack had been talking up. Possibly that was the real estate site. Valentina had mentioned it, so he tried heading there. If they were indeed forging a loan or something, he'd catch them red-handed. He arrived at the deserted lot, an overgrown patch of land behind a shuttered retail strip. Sure enough, Naomi's Lexus was parked next to Jack's slick Audi. Hard hammering, Albert approached quietly, weaving behind scraggly bushes. He spotted them near the trunk of the Audi, documents spread across the hood, a notary stamping something. Brian was also there, eyeing the process with excitement. Naomi and Jack were murmuring about transferring partial ownership and "we'll pay it back after we flip." The notary seemed oblivious to the moral dimension, just stamping for a fee. Albert stepped forward, voice cold. "What the hell is going on?" Naomi spun, face draining of color. Jack froze, pen in hand. Brian stepped back, eyes wide. The notary glanced around nervously. "All set, Miss Griffin?" the notary asked. "Do I have your husband's signature too?" Jack cleared his throat. "He's not part of this. We're just using Miss Griffin's portion." Albert cut in sharply. "My portion, you mean? This is marital property. Did you forget I have to co-sign for any official property lien or loan?" Naomi stammered. "Albert, We're investing in a guaranteed profit. Jack needed a co-signer. We plan to surprise you with the returns." Albert's fury boiled. "Surprise me by forging documents behind my back, dragging our son here to watch? Are you insane?" Jack stepped forward, exuding forced confidence. "Relax. We're building a future for Brian. You're stuck in the old ways. Networking is everything. Once we flip this land, the payoff is huge. We'll replenish your accounts." Albert let out a bitter laugh. "Replenish? You have zero official backing, Jack. You're loaded with debt. Naomi's draining my finances for your pipe dream. Meanwhile, Brian's enthralled by your empty promises." Brian muttered, "Dad, you don't get it. This is the modern approach. Quick capital, fast returns." Albert turned on him, voice trembling with anger and heartbreak. "Son, you're naive. Real success requires real labor, real sweat, not these shady deals." Jack smirked. "Oh, typical. He wants you stuck under the blazing sun, building houses with hammered nails, while we leap forward with savvy deals. That's 2024. The final straw snapped. Albert lunged, grabbing the documents. "You are not forging my signature or using my wife as a false front. Not today." He tore them in half. The notary yelped. Naomi burst into tears. "Albert, please. Let's talk about this rationally." "Rationally?" He cast her a withering glare. "You lied, deceived me, roped our son into your illusions, risking everything I've built for this family. Enough." He turned to the notary, voice dangerously calm. "Leave. There's no legal basis for anything here. This deal is void." The notary fled, papers half-stamped. Jack cursed. "You can't stop progress, old man. We'll find another way." Albert shoved the torn documents at him. "Progress? More like a con. You messed with the wrong man. This ends now. Naomi, if you want to keep my trust at all, leave with me. If you stay with him, you lose everything." Naomi trembled, glancing from Jack to Albert. Brian stood uncertain, the illusions cracking. At last, Naomi turned away from Jack. "Albert, okay. I'll come. Don't leave me here." Albert nodded, ignoring Jack's sputtered protests. Brian hesitated, but after seeing the fury in his father's eyes, he followed. They piled into Albert's truck. As they drove off, Jack hollered curses, the shards of the half-signed contract fluttering in the dusty wind. Return home. Tension erupted in the living room. Brian retreated upstairs, face pale. Naomi tearfully tried to explain, but Albert demanded silence. "Save it, I'm calling my lawyer." He reached for his phone. She clutched his arm, sobbing, "Please, no, I'll do anything. I was stupid. I thought Jack's plan might help Brian's college. I never wanted to sabotage us." Albert stared, expression hard. "Then start by telling me every detail. Every hidden expense, every meeting, every false signature attempt. If you lie again, I'm done for good." Naomi collapsed onto the couch, tears flowing. "I'll tell you everything. Just don't throw me out yet." He called Brian downstairs. "Son, you too. Enough illusions." They sat, father's stony glare demanding absolute truth. Naomi and Brian confessed how they admired Jack's flashy style, how he promised shortcuts to wealth, how they resented Albert's slow, manual approach. They revealed fancy dinners, test drives, hush-hush funneling of small amounts from the joint account, hoping for a windfall that would wow Albert. Albert listened with cold detachment, arms folded. You believed a sweet talker. Meanwhile, you ridiculed me behind my back. Now you see how illusions crumble. And you used the college fund? Or tried to? That's beyond reckless. Brian looked ashamed, stammering apologies. Naomi sobbed. I was lonely, Albert, but I had no right to do this. I even let him get too close personally. We never... She paused, swallowing. We never fully consummated it, if that matters, but emotionally, I was unfaithful. I'm so sorry. Albert's heart twisted. So it was an emotional and partially physical affair, the final puzzle piece. I see. Enough for me to consider it betrayal? Let me guess. You'd have taken it further had I not discovered your texts? She wept. I don't know. Maybe. But I regret everything. Chapter 4. Now with full revelations, Albert systematically set out to 1. Lock down all finances. He moved all major funds into an account requiring his sole signature. 2. Document everything. He gathered Naomi's confessions, Brian's messages, proof of Jack's manipulations. 3. Finalize a separation or retribution, weigh whether to file for divorce or offer Naomi a punishing post-nuptial, ensuring no further betrayal. He started by removing Naomi's name from the mortgage and halting the college fund tampering. The bank complied with his requests, given the evidence of potential financial fraud. Naomi, cornered, signed the necessary documents. Brian, guilt-stricken, realized he might be forced to switch schools if the finances changed drastically. Late that week, Albert walked into the offices of an imposing downtown law firm. A confident attorney, Eliana Ruiz, greeted him. She specialized in high-stakes divorces and financial misappropriation. After hearing Albert's story and skimming the docs, she said, "We can build a strong case. Emotional and financial betrayal. If you want a scorched earth approach, we'll get you almost everything: house, custody, the works. Or we can push for a post-nuptial that protects you from future madness." Albert exhaled. I'm leaning toward giving her a chance for the sake of Brian, but under ironclad conditions. If she fails again, she leaves with nothing. Eliana smiled. We can draft that post-nup. She might balk, but if she's truly remorseful, she'll sign. He nodded, feeling relief. She began drafting. Meanwhile, Albert's phone lit with multiple missed calls from Naomi. Possibly she sensed the net closing. He ignored them. Let her sweat. That night, father and son had a private talk. Albert forced Brian to read some of Jack's toxic messages, mocking Albert's manual labor approach to success. Brian's face reddened with shame. Brian stammered, I'm sorry, Dad. I got starstruck by Jack's lifestyle. The fancy cars, the lunches, he made me think you were outdated. That hustle is about connections, not actual work. I was an idiot. Albert studied him. You were manipulated, yes. But you also chose to ignore everything I taught you. Now look at the damage. Our finances are in chaos. Your mother's trust is shot. You might lose your private school. Tears welled in Brian's eyes. I never meant to ruin us. Please, Dad, I'll fix it. I'll get a part-time job, repay whatever I can. I'll focus on real plans for college. Just forgive me? Albert's hardened expression softened slightly. Forgiveness doesn't come instantly. Show me you've changed. Earn my trust back. I'll always be your father. But no more illusions. Brian nodded, voice trembling. Yes, sir. The next morning, Naomi cornered Albert in the kitchen. She'd been sleeping in the guest room since the fiasco. She offered him a folder, trembling. I typed a full confession of every transaction, every meeting with Jack, all my misjudgments. I want you to have it, so you see I'm not hiding anything else. If you want me to sign a post-nup, I will. If you want me gone, I'll go. But I hope you'll let me prove I can do better." Albert flipped through the pages. Sure enough, it was a thorough listing of expenditures, dinners, small gifts. He recognized it as genuine contrition. She placed her hand on his arm tentatively. "Albert, I love you. I got carried away, dazzled by Jack's talk of easy money. I was lonely, yes, but that's no excuse. I let our marriage drift. Please let me atone." He inhaled, the sting of betrayal still raw. "You know I visited a lawyer? I could file tomorrow, ruin you financially." She nodded tearfully. "I understand. I deserve it." He observed her, reading the sincerity in her eyes. Then he said quietly, "If you truly mean it, sign the post-nup my lawyer sends. Accept conditions that if you betray me again or funnel money behind my back, you lose everything. That's the only path I see." She bowed her head, tears falling. "I'll sign anything. I just want a chance to rebuild." So the plan was set. Eliana drafted a rigorous post-nuptial agreement. Naomi read it, tears dripping onto the pages, then scrawled her signature. Brian watched from a corner, swallowing guilt. The family trembled on the edge of collapse. But at least Naomi was no longer lying. One final step, ensuring Jack never again approached Naomi or Brian. With him indicted for potential fraud or forging real estate documents, it might be moot. But Albert wanted to be sure. He requested a protective order, citing prior attempts at blackmail and forging Naomi's signature. The judge granted a temporary restraining order, preventing Jack from contacting them. At the hearing, Jack's face was twisted with resentment. He eyed Naomi with betrayal, as if she'd chosen Albert's side over him. She refused to meet his gaze, huddling near Albert like a penitent. The court official declared that any contact from Jack to Naomi or Brian would be punishable by law. Albert let out a sigh of relief. That scoundrel was effectively barred from meddling in their lives. Meanwhile, Albert solidified alliances with colleagues in the construction sector. He planned expansions for his business, highlighting that he overcame a near-financial sabotage. Word spread that he was unstoppable under pressure. Local developers admired his resilience. Some offered bigger contracts. Valentina helped refine his pitch. He carefully withheld the family drama from professional circles, though rumors abounded about Naomi's fiasco with the dealership. "I'd rather let my work speak for itself," he told Valentina, "than dwell on the personal mess." Valentina agreed, praising him for balancing cunning revenge with a measure of dignity. One morning, the dealership's manager phoned. The firm had discovered irregularities with Jack's expansions. They recognized Naomi had been complicit. They offered a quiet settlement if Albert wouldn't push charges regarding potential forging of his name or cosign, but since Naomi had never actually completed the final signatures, the dealership faced no major legal threat. Albert listened stoically, forcing them to provide a written statement clarifying that Naomi's involvement in Jack's schemes was unauthorized. He might use that to protect himself in any future dispute. He politely refused any hush money, just demanded a formal letter disclaiming his liability. They complied. Naomi wept upon seeing the letter. "That's the last thread tying me to Jack's illusions." Albert said nothing, just locked the letter in a safe. Grasping for a fresh start, Naomi suggested a weekend getaway at a cabin 2 hours away. She pitched it as a chance for them and Brian to reconnect. "We can talk, Fish, no fancy stuff, just family." Brian perked up at the idea, missing simpler times. Albert eventually agreed. If this trip ended in meltdown, he'd finalize the divorce. If it somehow built healing, maybe they'd salvage the marriage. They packed a modest SUV, heading to a lakeside cabin. The drive was tense, but calmer than recent weeks. Naomi tried small talk. Brian apologized again for his arrogance. Albert remained mostly silent. At the cabin, the first day passed with cautious steps. They grilled burgers, fished half-heartedly. Brian admitted he'd never truly learned to fish because he'd been busy chasing flashy experiences with Jack. Albert taught him the basics, from tying a hook to casting the line. A poignant moment came when Brian reeled in a small trout, excitement lighting his face. "Dad, I caught one!" Albert felt a swell of fatherly pride. Naomi watched, tears shining. This was the honest connection their family had neglected. That evening, they sat around a small fire pit. Brian dozed off early, leaving Albert and Naomi alone under the star-studded sky. She softly said, "Thank you for letting me come here, for letting me try to fix us." Albert stared at the embers. "The memory of you wanting another man stings, but you're proving you regret it. Let's see if time cements that." She reached tentatively for his hand. This time he didn't pull away. They talked about old memories, how they first met, how excited they were to buy their first home. Naomi wept, admitting she lost sight of those joys, seduced by illusions of an easy life. Albert sighed, an ache in his chest. "I want to move forward. If you break my trust again, there's no second chance. Understood?" She nodded fervently, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Understood. I won't. I promise." They ended up leaning against each other, a fragile intimacy overshadowed by past hurt. For the first time in months, Albert felt a flicker of genuine warmth for his wife. Not naive, but maybe hopeful. Returning from the cabin, they found the house quiet, no sign of drama. Over the next weeks, Naomi fully cooperated with the new financial arrangement. Brian mended his attitude, even started taking a part-time job at a local hardware store to understand real work. Albert continued therapy sessions with Naomi, where they hashed out the affair's emotional root. Naomi's longing for excitement, her resentment of Albert's extended hours, her vulnerability to Jack's flattery. One day, Naomi disclosed that Jack had once suggested she file for divorce, saying, "We can do better without your old-fashioned husband." That memory made Albert's blood boil, but he recognized it as more proof of her returning honesty. She was no longer hiding Jack's manipulations. Months passed. The family found a new equilibrium. Valentina assisted Albert's business in scaling up, making deals with fresh developers. Naomi, grateful for a second chance, started a modest business from home. An online decor shop, carefully financed, with no involvement from shady characters. Brian, stung by regret, threw himself into genuine studying, aiming for an honest scholarship. He also apologized to Albert in front of the extended family, acknowledging that Dad's approach might be old school, but it's real and stable. Albert still had moments of bitterness, but each day, Naomi's devotion chipped away at his anger. She gave him full phone access, shared every schedule, canceled any old ties to the dealership. She even took a short break from working to focus on family therapy, volunteering part-time at a local charity. Meanwhile, the final hearing for the Somerset property flip ended with Jack indicted for fraud. That fiasco had no further cost to Albert thanks to the uncompleted documents. At home, the postnup remained pinned in the safe as a silent reminder. If Naomi ever strayed or misused finances again, she'd lose nearly everything. She never once complained about its severity. Instead, she repeated, "I'm thankful you didn't cast me out entirely." Eventually, attorney Eliana asked Albert if he wanted to finalize the divorce or remain married. He saw how Naomi had stepped up, how Brian was returning to a respectful path. The meltdown was behind them. So, he decided not to file. He and Naomi quietly canceled the separation arrangement, returning her name to certain joint accounts but with strict controls. She accepted wholeheartedly, grateful to remain with him. In therapy with Dr. Bowman, they concluded that while the betrayal had caused deep scars, Naomi and Albert both chose to rebuild. A vow renewal was considered, but they opted for a more private renewal at the same lakeside cabin, just them and Brian, reaffirming they'd remain a family. One crisp autumn morning, Albert woke early in the restabilized household. The tension of the past months had faded to a low hum. Naomi prepared coffee. Brian was reviewing a community college extension course. Outside, the busy hum of the neighborhood signaled a day of honest labor, the kind that Albert revered. He rose, feeling a strange serenity. He slipped on boots, heading outside to check the small wooden deck he'd built years ago. Naomi joined him, hugging a sweater around her shoulders. They looked at the horizon, remembering the storms they'd weathered. She whispered, "Thank you for staying." Albert put an arm around her. The heartbreak turned into a lesson. "Thank you for choosing to fix what you broke," he said quietly. Their eyes met with a new understanding, that the path forward was fragile, but real. They would keep building trust daily, showing Brian that unity could triumph over betrayal. The meltdown of Naomi's affair with Jack, the near loss of finances, the cunning revenge orchestrated by Albert to sabotage Jack's illusions, and the decision to attempt reconciliation. The future still teeters on a delicate line. But for now, the family remains intact, chastened, and prepared to face the next challenges. Chapter 5. The early spring sun shone through the double-height windows of Griffin Construction's newly expanded office, a modest but thoughtfully designed space on the outskirts of town. Albert sat at a sleek drafting table, reviewing final details for the Brookhaven renovation contract. His last 6 months had been tumultuous. He had confronted his wife, Naomi's affair with Jack, orchestrated the meltdown of Jack's illusions, and narrowly saved his family from total financial ruin. Yet the tension was not entirely gone. Naomi still lived under a watchful post-nuptial agreement, and Brian was rebuilding his relationship with his father. Albert inhaled, scribbling a note about the number of steel beams needed for the project. His phone buzzed. A text from Valentina, his longtime friend and occasional design consultant. Valentina, 9:15 a.m. New lead. High-end commercial client wants a personal consult. You free to meet them Thursday? He typed back. Yes. Let's do it. More details soon? Valentina responded. Will do. BTW. They asked specifically for the rising star who overcame big drama. Word on the street is you handle pressure well. Albert exhaled, a half smile. The meltdown with Jack had, ironically, boosted Albert's reputation as a man who thrived under adversity. Fine. Let that work in his favor. Just then, a knock at the door. Brian stuck his head in, wearing a polo shirt bearing the Griffin Construction logo. Dad, the supplier's online too. They said they can't fulfill the next rebar shipment until mid-June. Do we want to pay extra for expedited? Albert pressed his lips together. We'll see. Might push them to honor their original timeline. Thanks, son. I'll handle it. Over the past few months, Brian had taken a part-time role in the office, learning grunt tasks, scheduling deliveries, organizing receipts, even scuttling to job sites. He was slowly shedding the arrogance that once made him chase Jack's illusions. Brian lingered, expression uncertain. Dad, is it okay if I, rearrange the storeroom later? We have old sample panels stacked up. Albert nodded, impressed by the initiative. Sure, that'd help. Good thinking. A flicker of pride crossed Brian's face. He left with a purposeful stride. Albert sighed, grateful for small mercies. His son was returning to respect, one menial chore at a time. That evening at home, Naomi set the dinner table with quiet efficiency. Gone was the old flamboyance of designer outfits. She wore a simple blouse, hair pinned back, focusing on stability. Over the past months, she had become a partial stay-at-home spouse, shuttering her old marketing job. The dealership fiasco left her reputation battered, but she was determined to rebuild trust in smaller steps. Albert entered, exchanging a brief nod. The tension still lingered. He remembered how she'd once nearly funneled their money into Jack's bogus property flip, yet her contrite smile showed she was trying. Over dinner, she mentioned, "I've begun volunteering at a local youth center teaching basic finance to teens. Figured it's the least I can do after messing up our finances." He set down his fork. "Volunteering? That's good. Keep it small, keep it honest." Naomi swallowed. "Yes, and I'd like your permission, actually. If the youth center wants a small donation from us, can we do that together? Not me alone." Albert appreciated the new transparency. "Sure, let's see their budget. I'm not opposed to helping a good cause." She brightened. It was one more step toward trust. The next morning, a slender, businesslike woman in her late 30s stepped into Griffin Construction's front office. Addison Monroe, a local real estate investor, known for her discerning eye. She was the new lead Valentina had teased about. Valentina introduced her to Albert. "Addison has a half-dozen properties she wants to renovate, some commercial, some residential. She heard you handle tough logistics." Addison gave a polite smile, warm, yet professional. "Mr. Griffin, I've heard about how you overcame sabotage last year. If you can handle that, you can handle my expansions." Albert shook her hand, eyes flicking over her crisp suit. She exuded competence. "Pleased to meet you. We can definitely discuss a plan. I prefer thorough site evaluations first." Addison nodded. "Yes, we'll do that. I'm looking for a contractor who's unflappable under pressure. I run a tight ship, some might call it intense. If you're game, we can start with a smaller building. If that goes well, bigger projects follow." Valentina chimed in. "I'll assist with the interior design aspects if you like." Addison offered a faint grin. "Great. Let's finalize the scope. I want no shortcuts, only top quality." Albert suppressed a grin at the irony. Addison's approach contrasted sharply with Jack's illusions of fast money. Maybe this was a sign life was returning to honest deals. They scheduled a site visit for the following week, Addison departing with a crisp handshake. After she left, Valentina arched an eyebrow at Albert. "She's tough but fair. Might be a huge boon to your business if you impress her." He nodded, feeling a stirring of excitement. A big project could cement his post-crisis comeback. That evening, while discussing the new contract, Naomi's face grew pinched. "So you'll be working closely with Addison Monroe, an ambitious investor woman? That's interesting. You'll be alone on sites with her?" Albert frowned. "Yes, it's part of the job. Are you worried or jealous or something?" Naomi's lips quivered. "I guess I'm just uneasy. You saw how easily I got seduced by illusions. I fear you might find a woman who's truly your equal in business and prefer her to me. I have no right to be jealous, but I can't help it." Albert exhaled. "Your affair with Jack was about illusions, betrayal. Addison is a professional contact, that's all. I'm focusing on building my business, not hooking up with her." She nodded, biting her lip. "I know. Sorry. I just can't stop these insecure thoughts." He studied her, recalling the humiliating times he found her texts with Jack. Perhaps her fear was natural. "We'll handle it. But remember, I haven't broken our vows. You did. So if you trust me at all, let me do my job." She swallowed tears. "Yes, you're right. A few days later, Addison led Albert and Valentina through a run-down office suite on the second floor of a half-occupied commercial plaza. The space smelled musty. Old carpeting peeled away from the corners. Addison explained, "I got it at a bargain price. The catch, serious rewiring needed, plus a messy load-bearing wall issue. The previous contractor bailed. Think you can handle it?" Albert scanned the walls, measuring the span in his mind. "We'll likely replace the old studs, reroute the main support. The electrical might need a total overhaul. It's major, but doable." Valentina took notes, suggesting color palettes. Addison nodded. Then Addison pivoted to a back corner, revealing a hidden safe that once belonged to a previous tenant. "We suspect old records are locked inside. Might be worthless, might not. Building owner said we can keep anything if we manage to open it." Albert shrugged. "We have a buddy at a locksmith shop who can crack it if needed." Addison's eyes gleamed. "Please do. Could be interesting." They concluded the inspection, Addison setting an aggressive deadline. "I want this done in 6 weeks. If you deliver, I'll reward you with more projects." Albert felt a surge of determination. "We'll do it right, not haphazard, but we'll push to meet your timeline." She gave a tight smile. "Perfect! Let's get the contract hammered out. If you succeed, you'll handle my bigger, more lucrative expansions." Albert returned home late, energized by the new project. Naomi awaited him, arms crossed. "You were out with Addison again? It's nearly 10 p.m. He sighed. Site inspection ran long, then dinner with Addison and Valentina to finalize contracts. "I texted you." She frowned. "Barely." "You said working late, that's it." He rubbed his temples. "Look, we overcame your betrayal, but if you think I'll let you micromanage me, you're mistaken." Tears sprang to her eyes. "I'm not micromanaging, just paranoid. I don't want to lose you. Maybe I deserve this insecurity after what I did, but it's eating me up." Albert's voice softened slightly. "Naomi, this Addison deal is business. I'm not straying. We have the post-nup. My anger remains, but I'm trying to rebuild. Give me the same courtesy." She nodded, tears slipping. "All right, I'll do better." They parted ways for bed, Naomi curling in the master bedroom. Albert joined her but kept an emotional distance, mind on the upcoming project. He noticed a flicker of worry in her eyes, but said nothing. Chapter 6. 3 weeks into the office suite renovation, Albert's crew worked steadily. Addison visited daily, ensuring everything was up to her standards. She was exacting. Each day's tasks had to be fully documented, each supply receipt double-checked. Valentina orchestrated design details. Albert liked Addison's no-nonsense approach and the fact that the project was on track, stoking the possibility of bigger deals. One afternoon, Addison pulled Albert aside. "You're doing well. I'm considering a second property, an old warehouse on Riverside. If you handle that, we'll be in business for the next year. Interested?" Albert's chest stirred with ambition. "Absolutely. Let's finish this job strong first." Addison smirked. "Sure, but I want a preview of how you'd approach it. Let's do an after-hours visit next week. We'll walk the warehouse." He hesitated. Another late outing. Naomi's insecurities flared last time. But from a business standpoint, it was golden. "Yes, let's set a time. I'll bring Valentina if she's free." Addison shrugged. "Fine, or we can handle it ourselves." Albert mentally braced for Naomi's reaction. Later that day, Brian arrived at the construction site to deliver some supplies. Addison was there, scanning the updated blueprint pinned on a wall. Brian, young and impressionable, admired Addison's polished style. He started asking her about real estate flipping, obviously curious for quick success tips reminiscent of the illusions Jack once fed him. Addison gave him a quick speech about patient capital and value-add strategy, nowhere near as seductive or glitzy as Jack's talk. But Brian latched onto a phrase about aggressive deadlines for maximum ROI. He asked if she thought he could become her intern. Addison politely deflected, saying she only worked with established professionals, but she appreciated his interest. Brian's face fell, feeling slightly snubbed. That night, he complained to Albert. "She acts like I'm a kid who can't handle advanced deals," Albert responded. "You're learning. Don't jump steps. That's how illusions form." Brian nodded, recalling how illusions led him astray with Jack. He bit his tongue, trying to trust his father's pace. A few days later, Valentina flagged a quiet rumor. Addison had a history of pushing contractors to deliver fast, then flipping properties for huge profits, sometimes leaving the contractors' final payments delayed or contested. "She's not malicious, but she's known for tough negotiations," Valentina said. "Watch your back. She might short you if you miss a single day's deadline." Albert frowned. Another potential hazard. He couldn't let Addison overshadow him or manipulate him. He resolved to ensure everything was documented. If Addison tried to corner him financially, he'd respond with the same cunning he used against Jack. One day, Naomi picked up groceries when an old acquaintance from the dealership recognized her. The woman sneered. "Heard you nearly cost your husband's business with that affair. Surprised he kept you around." Naomi returned home shaken, tears in her eyes. She told Albert she felt worthless, haunted by her misdeeds. Albert offered a stoic shrug. "We overcame it once. Let the gossipers talk." She broke down, crying. "I deserve it, but it still hurts. I want to prove I'm better now." He gave her a brief hug, murmuring, "Then focus on the present. Let's finalize your volunteering. Do good quietly. Gossip will fade eventually." Though the words were gentle, a shard of distance remained. She recognized she might never fully reclaim the untainted love from before her betrayal. As scheduled, Addison asked for that after-hours walkthrough of the Riverside warehouse. Valentina was unavailable, so it ended up just Addison and Albert around 8 p.m. They combed the echoing space with flashlights, evaluating the structural beams, the sagging roof. Addison took photos, occasionally brushing close to Albert in the dimness. At one point, Addison teased, "I see why some folks mention your resilience. You overcame sabotage from your own wife's ex-lover. Impressive." Albert froze. "You know about that?" She shrugged. "This town's gossip is unstoppable, but I respect how you turned it to your advantage. I admire cunning." Her tone carried an odd note. Albert tensed. "It wasn't cunning for fun. It was survival." She gave a slight grin. "Either way, you ended that man's illusions. Now you're stronger. Let me guess, your wife's paying penance?" Albert exhaled, uneasy at her prying. "We're rebuilding. Let's keep it at that." Addison nodded, but her curious gaze lingered as if testing his resolve. They finished the inspection. Addison made cryptic remarks about, "We'll both profit if we stay in sync," then parted ways, leaving Albert with a faint sense of disquiet. Did Addison see him as a potential ally in more than business? Chapter 7. Back at the office, Addison's warehouse project soared into more complexity. She demanded a formal bid from Albert for the entire renovation, plus an expansion. Meanwhile, rumors suggested another contractor was bidding, too. Addison told Albert, "If your competitor offers me a lower price or faster schedule, I might jump ship. No hard feelings, business is business." Albert's jaw tightened. He realized Addison might be playing him. Nevertheless, he submitted a fair but firm bid, refusing to shortchange quality. Let Addison choose integrity or illusions. He would not stoop to shady tactics for her approval. In a twist, the competitor turned out to be an old colleague of Albert's from years ago, named Lorenzo Page. Lorenzo was known to undercut prices, then use cheap labor. Addison might be tempted. If Addison picked cheap over high quality, that'd reveal her stripes. One evening, Brian came home, sheepishly telling Albert he'd scratched an expensive sedan. "A friend let me drive his dad's Mercedes. We were messing around and I clipped a curb. Now the repairs cost $900. Albert glared. "You have $900 for that?" Brian's shoulders slumped. "No. Dad, I'm sorry. I messed up again. I was just trying to be cool, show them I could handle it." Albert scowled, seeing echoes of the old illusions. "We told you no more borrowed glitz. If you want money for repairs, earn it. Extra tasks or get a better part-time job. I'm not bailing you out." Brian's eyes filled with tears, but he didn't argue. "Okay, I'll figure it out." Naomi tried to intervene gently. "Albert, let's not be too harsh. He is just a teen." But Albert retorted, "He's old enough to handle consequences. We all must." Brian nodded, subdued. Days later, Addison called, sounding triumphant. "Albert, I selected you for the warehouse job on one condition. We accelerate the timeline by 2 weeks. That's tough, but if you succeed, the bonus is huge." Albert weighed it. "We can try. But any penalty for missing that earlier date?" She chuckled. "Yes. You forfeit 10% of your final payment if you overshoot. It's a risk-reward scenario." Albert scowled at the phone. This was borderline extortion, but the reward might catapult his firm to new heights. "All right, I accept. We'll intensify the schedule, but we won't compromise quality." Addison purred. "Perfect. I love a man who can handle pressure." He hung up, unsettled by her insinuations. That evening, Addison visited the site late, bringing a bottle of expensive wine. She told Albert, "Just a small celebratory drink. Let's go over blueprint changes in my SUV." He hesitated, feeling this could be misconstrued, especially after Naomi's fiasco. But Addison insisted. In the SUV, Addison popped the cork. "I've rarely met a contractor with your focus. You remind me of myself, unafraid to do what's needed." She leaned closer than necessary. Albert stiffened. "I appreciate your confidence, Ms. Monroe, but I don't mix business with anything else." She smirked. "Understood. Not everyone is naive. But if you ever reconsider, let me know." He left quickly, refusing the wine. A swirling dread rose. Addison was playing a dangerous game, half seducing, half challenging him. If Naomi discovered meltdown too, he resolved to keep Addison at strict professional distance. Back home, Albert found Naomi rummaging in the kitchen, tensely eyeing the time 10 p.m. "You were with Addison again? Alone?" He breathed deeply. "Yes, finalizing the warehouse scope. She tried to celebrate with wine in her SUV. I shut it down." Naomi's eyes narrowed. "So, she is making a move on you?" "Figures. A power woman who sees you as some battered husband ripe for picking." Albert bristled. "I told her no. I'm not repeating your mistakes." Naomi bit her lip, tears threatening. "I believe you. I'm just terrified of losing you. Sorry, I'll trust you, I promise." He nodded curtly, exhaustion hitting him. "We have enough drama. Let's end the day." She approached, hesitating, then wrapped her arms around him in a tentative hug. He let her, a small step of closeness. They parted in silence. Chapter 8. Albert's crew raced to complete the warehouse renovation on Addison's accelerated schedule, working weekends, extended shifts. Tension soared. Addison hovered daily, barking about deadlines. She repeated the penalty clause. Remember, if we slip past the target date, you lose 10%. Albert's employees grew resentful, but he insisted on fairness while pushing them. We need this done right, guys. Addison's well connected. This could lead to bigger expansions. Brian volunteered as a site runner after school, fetching supplies or returning mislabeled shipments. He struggled but improved daily, gleaning real work ethic. One day, a forklift malfunction nearly caused a partial collapse. Brian was operating it, under supervision, when a chain snapped. Albert swiftly coordinated a safe fallback, preventing injuries. Addison arrived, found the forklift fiasco, paused progress. She snapped at Albert. "A day's delay? This is unacceptable. Should I hire Lorenzo after all?" Albert set his jaw. "We're handling it. Safety first. We'll still meet your date or come close, unless you want subpar shortcuts." Addison scowled but relented. "Fine, but no more mishaps." Remember that locked safe in Addison's first office suite? Valentina's locksmith friend finally cracked it. They discovered old documents, some worthless, plus a small pouch containing 8 gold coins. Addison was thrilled, exclaiming that these coins might be historically valuable. She offered Albert a small finder's fee. Albert, though, had the sense Addison might underreport the coins' worth. Possibly they were worth tens of thousands each. But he didn't press it, focusing on finishing the job. Let Addison keep her hush gold. He'd rather keep the relationship stable, not risk conflict over found treasure. However, word leaked among the crew about the gold coins. Some muttered Addison was making a fortune. Tensions rose. Addison refused any worker bonus. This underlined that Addison was no altruist. She prioritized her bottom line. One weekend, Addison texted Albert late at night, requesting an urgent site check. Naomi, seeing the phone light up at 11 p.m., lost composure. She confronted Albert tearfully. "I'm sorry. I can't handle this. She's flirting with you, calling you at all hours. I'm living in constant fear. You'll do what I did, betray me." Albert rubbed his temple. "I keep turning her down. She's pushy. This job ends soon, and we might not work with her again." Naomi sobbed. "But we need the bigger expansions, right? She's your golden goose, and I'm the foolish wife who once cheated. If you do cheat with Addison, who am I to complain? I set that precedent." Albert's anger flared. "Stop. I didn't do this to you. You did it to me. I'm not looking for an affair. I'll finish Addison's project, collect payment, be done. If you can't trust me, that's on you." She collapsed into a chair, shaking. "I do trust you, but I hate her. She's everything I fear: smart, driven, unstoppable. She's me, if I'd gone further down the path of ambition." He softened slightly. "You want me to walk away from Addison's expansions, sabotage our business growth because you're paranoid?" She bit her lip. "No, I just can't stand the tension. But I'll endure if that's what it takes." He nodded. "Then endure. Let me handle Addison my way." Finally, the last day of Addison's compressed schedule arrived. The crew hammered finishing touches. Addison paced, checking her watch. Valentina arranged final decor. By evening, they declared it done. Addison scrutinized every corner, verifying compliance. At 8 p.m., she declared, "Acceptable. You finished by the skin of your teeth." Albert exhaled relief, the penalty avoided. Addison typed on her phone, presumably instructing her finance team to issue payment. Then, Addison stepped closer to Albert, voice low. "You performed well. I have bigger projects. If we partner, you'll scale up quickly. But let's be real, I like to keep my partners close. If that's not feasible, I might find someone else." Albert recognized the subtext. She was implying a personal closeness. He responded firmly. "I appreciate the business, but we keep it purely professional. That's who I am." Addison's eyes narrowed. And if I decide to hire your competitor for the next big one, you'd lose a chance at doubling your revenue. He shrugged calmly. I'll find another route. My integrity isn't for sale. She stared, expression unreadable. All right, then we're done here. She pivoted, told Valentina. Send me final receipts. I'll pay promptly, and strode off, a swirl of expensive perfume in her wake. Valentina approached, wide-eyed. That was tense. Did you turn down some offer? Albert exhaled. Yes. She wanted more than business. I refused. Let her be. We completed the project. We'll move on. Days later, Addison quietly parted ways. She paid the final invoice, fully no penalty, no bonus, and gave a terse thanks. Then she engaged another contractor, presumably that Lorenzo. Rumors said she was stringing him along. Possibly Addison craved a personal arrangement. Good luck, Lorenzo. Albert's firm ended up with a decent profit from the job, plus a modest increase in local respect. Brian learned a valuable lesson about honest hustle. Naomi, seeing Albert remain steadfast, sighed relief that Addison was out of the picture. The chaos that Addison brought, though shorter than Jack's saga, reaffirmed that borrowed prestige or personal entanglements could threaten everything. Albert had navigated the minefield again, staying faithful. Naomi expressed gratitude daily. Albert stood in his newly reorganized workshop behind the office, surveying racks of tools. Brian stacked lumber in a corner, whistling softly. Naomi approached with a thermos of coffee, handing it to Albert. This small domestic gesture felt more genuine now, each day's calm forging new trust. He took a sip, meeting her eyes. We overcame Addison's trap. Next time we'll be even more cautious. Naomi nodded, voice soft. I see now how easily illusions might creep in. I'm proud you turned her down even if it cost potential expansions. He shrugged. I built this company from the ground up. If expansions require moral compromise, I'll pass. They parted ways. Naomi left to pick Brian up from a volunteer shift at the youth center. Albert stared after them, mind flicking to the next step, clarifying the final building blocks of their family's future. Chapter 9. Early summer brought a balmy warmth to the suburban town where Albert and Naomi Griffin lived with their teenage son, Brian. 6 months had passed since Addison parted ways, leaving Albert's firm with a completed warehouse project, but no new deals from her. Meanwhile, Jack, the ex-lover who once tried to ruin Albert's life, remained out of the picture. Naomi had worked diligently to mend her marriage, and Brian had grown more responsible, balancing part-time chores at Griffin Construction with his schooling. The tension from the affair was slowly dissolving. Yet a lingering heaviness remained. Naomi still occasionally woke from nightmares of losing everything, while Albert sometimes had flashbacks to the betrayal her near affair with Jack, the near seduction attempts by Addison. The post-nuptial agreement hovered like a silent guardian, ensuring Naomi never again strayed financially or emotionally. Albert sighed at the breakfast table, swirling coffee in a plain ceramic mug, no more fancy cappuccino machines. Naomi sat across from him, hair pinned in a neat bun, wearing an understated blouse. She had an interview that afternoon with a local charity and admin position. She was determined to keep her new humility intact. They made small talk about Brian's upcoming summer program. He'd been accepted into a short architectural design camp, a promising sign that the boy had found a genuine interest in building, ironically enough. Brian entered the kitchen, rummaging for cereal. Dad, any chance I can drive the truck to school next week? I have to pick up supplies for that design camp. Albert's heart pinched memories of Brian once bragging about driving Jack's fancy BMW. But times had changed. Albert weighed it. All right, if you pass the local driving test and keep it minimal. But no goofing off. Understood? Brian grinned. Yes, sir, I appreciate it. Naomi smiled softly, apparently grateful to see father and son united. She rose to clear the dishes, but Albert took them from her hands gently. I've got it. She gave him a warm look. Small gestures like these had become part of their slow healing. That afternoon, while Naomi dressed for her interview, the mail arrived. Among the usual bills and flyers was an envelope with no return address, scrawled in clumsy handwriting. Albert opened it cautiously. Mr. Griffin, I have knowledge about certain events relating to Jack Watson's fiasco at the dealership. This may concern your wife's involvement. If you want the full story, meet me at the Redwood Motel, room 203, 8 p.m. tomorrow. A concerned party. Albert frowned. Jack's fiasco was old news. Jack presumably left town or was indicted for financial misdealings. Why would someone claim new info about your wife's involvement? He showed Naomi. Her face went pale. Oh, God, is this blackmail? I swear I told you everything about me and Jack. She trembled. Please believe me. Albert studied the letter. Could be a scam, or Addison's messing with us, or someone else stirring trouble. Not sure, but I can't ignore it. He decided he'd go, albeit carefully. I'll handle it alone. If there's some hidden landmine from Jack's wreckage, I want to defuse it. Naomi swallowed, tears forming. I hate that this keeps coming back to haunt us. I'm so sorry. Albert laid a hand on her shoulder. Let's see what they want. Don't panic yet. Naomi left for her charity admin interview, nervous. She arrived at a small office in the old downtown area. The interviewer, a middle-aged woman named Brenda Hughes, recognized Naomi's name. Naomi saw a flicker of recognition. Did Brenda know about the affair fiasco? But the interview went smoothly. Brenda asked about Naomi's organizational skills, experience in marketing. Naomi humbly admitted past mistakes, focusing on how she learned from them. To her relief, Brenda admired her honesty. They parted with a handshake. Brenda said they'd finalize decisions next week. Naomi left, heart lighter. Another small step toward normalcy. On the drive home, she texted Albert. Naomi, 3:47 p.m. Went well. Feeling hopeful. He replied, Albert, proud of you. We'll celebrate if you get it. She exhaled, a faint smile. She prayed no new crises would shatter this fragile peace. 8 p.m. the next day, as promised, Albert pulled into the Redwood Motel's cracked asphalt lot. He spotted no suspicious vehicles. The neon sign flickered overhead. He approached room 203, bracing for potential danger. He'd told Naomi if he didn't text by 9:30, call the police. She'd nodded anxiously. He knocked. A muffled voice said, Come in. He opened the door, finding a scrawny man in a rumpled jacket, face partially hidden by a baseball cap. The man looked around nervously. Albert closed the door, arms folded. You wanted to see me? Talk quickly. The man introduced himself as Troy Garrison. He claimed to be an ex-salesman from the same dealership where Naomi worked. I saw things, man. Jack wasn't alone forging deals. He had an accomplice or two who wanted to bury you, using your wife's name or credentials. Albert's jaw tightened. Naomi told me all about the shady stuff. She was manipulated by Jack. That's old news. Why drag it up now? Troy fidgeted. Because the big boss might come after your wife again. It's not just Jack. There's a bigger fish. The dealership's upper management is still furious about the meltdown. They might sue your wife if they blame her partially. Word is they found gaps in finances. They could claim Naomi conspired. Albert felt a cold surge. Naomi left that job months ago. She never completed the fraudulent property flip. So how is she liable? Troy shrugged. You know how corporate types can spin things. I heard the district manager is looking for a scapegoat to cover his own tracks. If he pins it on Naomi, plus references to her affair with Jack, they might angle for legal or reputational damage. Albert's eyes narrowed. Why are you telling me this? Troy swallowed. I want to clear my conscience. I overheard them plan to feed the narrative that your wife knowingly helped Jack funnel money. They might blackmail her to sign something or pay restitution. Albert clenched fists. Another blackmail attempt? Thanks for the heads-up. This is real? Troy nodded vigorously. I have partial docs. They threatened me if I spoke out, but I'm leaving town. I want no part of this. He handed Albert a small flash drive. Some emails. Not sure if it helps you. Good luck. Then, as if spooked, Troy hurried out. Albert stood there, heart pounding. Another storm brewing, courtesy of the old dealership fiasco. He left quickly, texting Naomi. Heading home. We'll talk. That night, after Naomi collapsed into uneasy sleep, Albert quietly contacted Eliana. The divorce attorney turned general legal counsel for him. She met him at her office the next morning. He explained Troy's revelations. Eliana plugged the flash drive into her laptop, scanning the emails. Indeed, they referenced covering the shortfall, pinning it on ex-employee Naomi, and public story that she orchestrated it with Jack. A corporate exec named Vincent Klein was the main figure. Eliana frowned. This is serious. They're building a scapegoat case if someone audits them. Possibly they want your wife to sign a false confession or pay hush money. If we do nothing, they might blindside her. Albert's eyes hardened. We'll preempt them. I have the real story. Jack manipulated Naomi. We can show the post-nuptial and her current volunteer track record. We can also highlight her limited role at the dealership. She never had signing authority for major deals. Eliana nodded. Yes, we gather evidence. Also, I'll quietly approach that district manager or top brass. Let them know we have the emails from Troy. They try to push Naomi under the bus. We push back. Hard. Albert exhaled relief. Another crisis. But at least they had a plan. Naomi reacted with panic when Albert revealed the new threat. She read the partial emails, voice trembling. I never had serious power. I was just a mid-level marketing rep. Why blame me? Albert steadied her, remembering his old protective stance. Because you're an easy target, someone who left under a scandal, had an affair with a manager. They want a scapegoat. But we'll fight. Eliana has proof they're scheming. Naomi's tears glistened. I feel so stupid for ever letting Jack entangle me. Now these corporate creeps think I'm an accomplice. He gently squeezed her hand. Focus on the fact you're innocent. We'll handle it. The old dynamic of him shielding her from consequences re-emerged. Yet this time she was fully transparent, letting him lead. A week later, Naomi received a formal letter from Vincent Klein, the dealership district manager. We request your presence to discuss financial irregularities from your time of employment. Non-compliance may result in legal action. The letter implied she might be compelled to repay alleged losses. Naomi's hands shook as she read it. They're moving forward with the scapegoat plan. Albert nodded, fists clenching. We'll show up with Eliana. If they threaten you, we reveal their own dirty laundry. He also texted Valentina, telling her to stand by for additional moral support or potential public relations spin. Valentina replied, I've got your back. This time, no illusions overshadow the truth. On the appointed morning, Albert, Naomi, and Eliana marched into the dealership's corporate office, a slick glass-walled building. A tense hush settled as they stepped into a boardroom. Vincent Klein waited with a smarmy grin, flanked by two suits. On the table lay a file labeled Naomi Griffin misappropriation. Vincent gestured them to seats. Mrs. Griffin, we appreciate your time. We have evidence you colluded with Jack Watson, forging certain promotional budgets for personal gain. Naomi paled. That's not true. I never saw any personal gain. Jack used me, but I never authorized major budgets behind anyone's back. Vincent slid a stack of questionable documents forward, referencing marketing events Naomi had nominally supervised. He claimed funds were missing, tying it to Jack's name. We suspect you helped him shift money, possibly believing it was a normal expense. Eliana raised a hand. Stop! I have a flash drive containing internal emails from your own staff discussing how to frame Ms. Griffin if the audits uncovered real wrongdoing. We can go to the authorities right now. Vincent stiffened. That's hearsay. Eliana played a snippet of an extracted email. We can blame Naomi. She was naive and let Jack manipulate her. If we all sign statements, she'll fold. Another line read, one scapegoat is safer than letting the truth get out. Vincent's face reddened. Where did you get that? Eliana smiled. A concerned ex-employee. We're prepared to countersue if you push false allegations. Albert leaned forward, voice low. You're messing with the wrong people. My wife was gullible, but not malicious. She's endured enough. If you proceed, we'll reveal your attempts at scapegoating. Imagine the PR nightmare. Vincent tried to maintain composure. Let's be reasonable. Eliana smirked. Yes, reasonable. So you withdraw your threats, exonerate Naomi in writing, and we don't bury your corporation in scandal. Vincent's gaze flicked among his colleagues. He realized the impetus to hush this quietly. All right. We might consider dropping the inquiry, provided Ms. Griffin signs an NDA about internal matters. Naomi glanced at Albert, who nodded. He quietly asked Eliana, Is that safe? Eliana whispered back, Yes. If they just want hush-hush, it's fine. We're not the guilty party. In the end, they hammered an agreement. Naomi was cleared of wrongdoing. The dealership retracted any potential claim. She signed a non-disclosure to never publicly discuss the fiasco, and they parted ways. Another bullet dodged, thanks to Albert's strategic approach. Afterwards, Naomi slumped in the passenger seat as Albert drove them home. She rubbed her eyes. We keep facing mess after mess from my mistakes. Thank you for saving me again. Albert's response was measured. I did it for us. But let's not forget, I can't do this forever. We're trying to move forward. She nodded, tears threatening. I swear, no more secrets. He touched the steering wheel, emotions swirling. One more fiasco averted. How many more until they found stable ground? Chapter 10. As summer advanced, Brian started his short architectural design camp at the local community college. He surprised his parents by thriving in the environment, eagerly drafting small building concepts, soaking up knowledge about structural principles, ironically, following in Albert's footsteps. One afternoon, Brian returned home, excited. Dad, check these sketches. He displayed a modest blueprint for a micro-cabin. The instructor said I have talent. They recommended I do an internship if I want to truly learn. Albert felt a warm pride. That's fantastic, son. Hard-earned skill, not illusions. Brian nodded. Yeah, illusions got me nowhere. Naomi beamed with maternal pride. The tension between father and son had melted into mutual respect, a far cry from the days Brian sneered at old-school labor. Suddenly, Addison re-entered the picture via a phone call to Albert. We need to talk. I have a new property, but I suspect I'm facing sabotage from an ex-contractor. Are you up for another challenge? Albert's stomach tightened. Sabotage? From your competitor? Or from that Lorenzo you hired? Addison's tone was clipped. He's messed up the job, then threatened to blame me. We parted ways, but he's blackmailing me, claiming I coerced him into subpar materials. I need a reliable contractor to salvage it. Are you game? Albert hesitated. Addison's presence always brought potential chaos. We parted ways. Why me? She sighed. Because you're the only contractor I trust not to crumble under pressure. Also, you're honest. Ironically enough. He stifled a grim chuckle. Addison calling him honest after her attempt at seduction was indeed ironic. He told her he'd think about it. She pressed. Time is short. I'll pay top dollar if you fix it quickly. Albert hung up, unsettled. Could Addison's new crisis be a chance for bigger profits? Or was it a trap that might endanger his marriage again? He consulted Naomi that evening. She tensed at the mention of Addison. She tried to lure you. She might do so again. Albert nodded. Yes, but she's offering a big job. Our company's in a good place financially, but this could push us further. The question, is it worth the risk? Naomi inhaled. I trust you not to stray, but can we handle another Addison fiasco? He shrugged. We can set conditions like any meeting includes a third party. I won't be alone with her. Naomi blinked tears, relieved. That might help. If she tries anything, your staff sees it. Let's not sabotage your business out of fear. Albert arranged a group meeting with Addison at the half-finished site. He brought Valentina and a foreman. Addison arrived looking frazzled. She explained how Lorenzo cut corners, leaving structural problems. She needed a rescue operation. The job was large with a comfortable budget. She also half-apologized for her previous unprofessional approach. Albert nodded, arms folded. We can fix it, but we set ground rules. Full transparency, no after-hours nonsense, no penalty-laden deadlines. Addison pursed her lips. Fine. I just need it done right. No shady stuff, please. Valentina gave her a level stare. Addison sighed. Look, I get it. I messed up. Let's just keep it purely business. They signed a new contract with straightforward terms. Addison wrote a hefty deposit check on the spot. Albert's foreman grinned at the scope. This was the biggest single project Albert's firm had tackled, aside from the Addison jobs earlier. As they parted, Addison murmured quietly to Albert, Despite everything, I do respect you. Thank you for giving me a second chance. He gave a guarded nod. Let's keep it about the work. That's all. Chapter 11. Once they began the Addison rescue job, things progressed steadily. Addison stayed mostly out of the way, letting Albert's crew tear out Lorenzo's botched framing and rework it. She rarely visited alone, often bringing her new project manager, a no-nonsense woman named Stella, thus minimizing potential awkwardness with Albert. Naomi, hearing these updates, relaxed somewhat. But behind the scenes, Addison seemed anxious, occasionally texting Albert to ensure he'd expedite certain tasks. He responded with professional courtesy. One evening, Addison unexpectedly called him after 8 p.m. He let it ring, ignoring the call. She left a voicemail. Albert, sorry, just needed a quick update. Maybe I overstepped by calling late. Let me know tomorrow. He found it suspicious she was reverting to late calls. He texted, We'll talk at work hours, thanks. A week later, an unexpected sabotage occurred on site. A portion of newly installed beams were tampered with overnight. The morning crew arrived to find bolts loosened, some hardware missing. Furious, they speculated sabotage, maybe by Lorenzo or an associate, trying to ruin Addison's project out of spite. Addison arrived in a panic, demanding answers. Albert calmed the crew, calling the police to report vandalism. Addison's face was pale. He threatened me, but I never thought he'd go this far. I suspect he wants me to fail or pay him hush money. Valentina, who was on site, whispered to Albert, "Addison's toxic relationships keep dragging us into chaos. Let's proceed carefully." Albert nodded grimly. "We'll reinforce security. I won't let my men or my business suffer." They hired a night watchman and installed cameras. Addison apologized profusely for the drama, offering to pay extra for the lost time. Albert insisted she do so in writing no corners cut. Later that evening, Addison asked to speak privately with Albert in the main office trailer. He agreed only if Valentina was present. Addison sighed, but accepted. Once inside, Addison rubbed her temple. "I suspect Lorenzo and I had a personal entanglement. He wanted more. I refused. Now he's lashing out, damaging the site. I'm telling you so you're not blindsided." Valentina arched an eyebrow. Addison admitted she'd repeated a pattern of borderline romantic involvement with a contractor, an echo of what she tried with Albert. "I messed up. I let him think we'd partner in more ways than business. Then I discovered he was incompetent, so I fired him. He's bitter." Albert held in a groan. Addison's habit of mixing personal with business was unbelievably reckless, but at least she was being honest now. "So you created a new fiasco? Let's keep it from spilling onto my crew. Understood?" Addison nodded contritely. Valentina simply gave Addison a withering look. "We'll fix your building, but you must keep us safe from your personal entanglements, okay?" Addison said nothing, just nodded, tears shining. She left in a hurry, leaving Albert and Valentina exhausted by the perpetual drama. Albert told Naomi about Addison's sabotage incident. Naomi frowned, swirling her tea. "So Addison's ex-flame is wrecking her project. That woman can't separate personal from professional. I want you safe." He noted the protective tone in Naomi's voice, a reversal of the old days, where Naomi's own affair had endangered them. He gently said, "I'm staying cautious. Addison is paying for a night watchman, so we're covered. Don't worry." Naomi relaxed, sipping tea. "All right. Just watch your back. She's trouble, albeit less manipulative than Jack." He gave a small nod, an unspoken mutual understanding passing between them. Despite Addison's fiasco, their marital trust was stronger now, ironically shaped by the earlier storms with Jack. Meanwhile, Naomi's volunteer role at the youth center had blossomed into a part-time admin job. She sometimes taught financial literacy classes for teens from rough backgrounds. One day, she brought home a flyer about a donation drive, hoping Albert might help sponsor a new computer lab. She hesitated, fearing he might recall how she once nearly stole from the family. But he read the proposal, then quietly nodded. "Sure. Let's see how we can help. I'll talk to Eliana about the best approach to donate." Naomi smiled, touched that he entrusted her again with some philanthropic input. Another sign of healing. Chapter 12. As Addison's rescue project neared completion, the night watchman caught a suspicious figure lurking around midnight. They confronted him, discovering it was indeed Lorenzo. He scurried off, dropping a crowbar. The watchman recognized him from a photo Addison provided. The police took a statement, but couldn't arrest him unless Addison pressed charges for attempted vandalism. Addison wavered, still fearing a scandal. Albert confronted Addison the next day, steam practically emanating from his ears. "He's trespassing, actively sabotaging. If you don't press charges, this continues." Addison trembled. "He threatened to leak personal stuff about me if I push charges. I can't handle that scandal." Albert shook his head. "Grow up. I overcame worse with Naomi. Exposing a manipulator is better than letting them terrorize you. I refuse to see my project threatened." Valentina chimed in. "He nearly cost us a structural collapse. Pressing charges is your best defense." After a painful hesitation, Addison agreed. She filed a police report, naming Lorenzo as the saboteur. That same day, the cops visited his last known address. Word spread he fled town to avoid arrest. Albert's men felt relief. The final barrier was gone. They finished the repairs unimpeded. Addison expressed gratitude in a subdued manner. The building restoration concluded with a final inspection. Addison paid Albert in full, no stunts, no withheld amounts. She parted ways quietly, promising to keep future projects purely professional if there ever was a next time. Just when life seemed stable, an unexpected shock. Jack reappeared in town, posted bail after some charge or rumor. Albert never tracked the details. A mutual acquaintance spotted him at a local diner. Word reached Naomi, who panicked, worrying he might attempt contact. She told Albert tremblingly, "He's back. Should we expect another ambush?" Albert's eyes flashed with a calm menace. "If he tries anything, we're ready, legally or otherwise." But days passed with no sign from Jack. Possibly he was just passing through, or meeting with an attorney for his ongoing legal issues. On the 5th day, though, Brian came home pale-faced, saying he'd spotted Jack near his school, lurking by the fence. Brian quickly hurried away. "Dad, I'm spooked. He waved at me. I didn't wave back." Albert's fury ignited. "That man doesn't learn. I'll handle it. Next time, call me immediately." He texted Naomi a warning. She clutched her phone with dread, remembering how Jack once enthralled her and manipulated Brian. They braced for confrontation. Sure enough, the next day, as Albert left his office, he found Jack leaning against a lamppost outside the building. The man looked thinner, more ragged, but still wore that smug half-smile. Albert set his jaw, stepping up. "You got 10 seconds to explain why you're here." Jack shrugged. "Relax, old friend. I'm done messing with your family. The past is the past. I just wanted to see if you'd help me out. I'm in a tight spot, my charges soared, my ex-wife seized my assets. I need a job or a reference." Albert's disbelief flared. "You want me to help you? After all you did leading Naomi astray, humiliating me, nearly sinking Brian's college fund?" Jack sighed, eyes hollow. "I messed up, yes. But I figure you're big on second chances. You forgave your wife, right? Maybe you can do the same for me." Albert barked a bitter laugh. "Forgiving Naomi was about saving my family. You? We have no family bond." Jack rubbed his forehead, voice trembling. "I'm desperate. If I can't get steady work, I might end up in real trouble. Or I skip bail, vanish. But I'd prefer a real shot." Albert studied him, a swirl of anger and pity. "You showed no remorse before. Now you do?" Jack's lips twisted. "I have regrets. The flashy illusions cost me everything. You know how it is. Hard labor can't be that bad, right? If you could just let me do labor on your sites." Albert's mind flashed images of the heartbreak Jack inflicted. Could employing him help ensure he's under watch, not messing around? Or was that suicidal generosity? After a long pause, Albert's hardened expression returned. "I said no. My crew wouldn't trust you, and you can't fake your way into honest labor. We're done." Jack's face contorted with a flicker of rage, then resignation. "Fine. I guess this is farewell." He turned to go, then paused. "Tell Naomi I'm sorry. Not that it matters." He walked off. Albert watched him fade into the street, adrenaline coursing. A part of him wanted to relish Jack's downfall. Another part recognized the man might continue a cycle of self-destruction, but he refused to be guilted or manipulated. That evening, Albert told Naomi. She gasped at the idea Jack wanted a job. "I hope you said no." He nodded. "I did. That scoundrel's out of luck." She sighed relief, clinging to Albert in a hug. "Thank you." He gently patted her back. Their bond had grown sturdier, hammered by adversity. As the final weeks of summer approached, Brian completed his architectural camp with top marks. He proudly showed them a mini portfolio of design sketches. Naomi and Albert attended a small ceremony where Brian received an outstanding potential mention from the instructors. Brian, once enthralled by borrowed cars and illusions, now found real pride in building and design. Afterwards, he confided in Albert, "Dad, I know I messed up big time, but thanks for not giving up on me. I want to become an architect or a civil engineer, something legit. Maybe I can join your company after college." Albert's chest swelled with emotion. "I'd like that. We can keep forging a real path, not shortcuts." Brian nodded, tears in his eyes. Naomi quietly dabbed her own tears, seeing father and son forging a genuine bond again. In that moment, the heartbreak from her betrayal felt distant, overshadowed by the family's healing. One Sunday morning, Naomi woke early, preparing a simple breakfast of pancakes. She wore a floral apron, humming softly. Albert stepped into the kitchen, eyebrows raised. "We haven't done pancakes in ages. Special occasion?" She turned, face soft with sincerity. "I want to celebrate a year since you forgave me. I know the anniversary of your discovering the affair is next week. I dreaded that day. But now, I choose to mark it with gratitude for our second chance." Albert's heart ached. He recalled the day he found evidence of her betrayal. The memory stung less now, replaced by cautious acceptance. He gave her a faint smile. "All right. Let's treat it as a reminder we overcame it." She nodded, tears shining. "I've never been more thankful." They embraced. For the first time in months, it felt truly natural, an embrace of renewed love, not forced or overshadowed by guilt. They parted, each noticing in the other's eyes a spark of the old affection that once defined their marriage. Epilogue. Months later, the quiet suburban house thrived with new life. Brian had begun part-time drafting work for Griffin Construction, saving for community college, and possibly transferring to a larger architectural program later. Naomi maintained her charity-based admin job, occasionally assisting with the youth center's finance courses. She found meaning in helping at-risk teens avoid illusions of get-rich-quick schemes. Jack's attempts at a job never touched them again. Possibly he drifted away or faced further legal repercussions. Addison's fiasco concluded with the final rescue project, netting a decent profit for Albert's firm. Addison herself vanished from daily life, presumably chasing new deals with other contractors. Valentina and Eliana remained allies. Valentina continued providing design or PR help, Eliana occasionally advising on legal or contract matters. No further major threats loomed. In the stillness of a late autumn evening, Albert sat on the back porch with Naomi, gazing at a newly built pergola. The sky glowed with streaks of orange and pink. Brian's laughter echoed from inside the house, chatting with a friend about their next project. Naomi rested her head on Albert's shoulder. He allowed the closeness, heart free from the old bitterness. She whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me. For saving our family from illusions, Jack's illusions, Addison's illusions, even my illusions." He responded quietly. "I learned we can't just rely on raw vengeance. We also need careful planning and a willingness to rebuild. We overcame illusions with real building. That's how we survive." They shared a moment of serene silence, the final chapter of their heartbreak closing on a note of cautious hope. The post-nuptial remained in place, a reminder that if Naomi ever faltered, she'd lose everything. But she showed no sign of faltering. Instead, she sought to honor the second chance she'd been given. And so the saga concluded, a family tested by betrayal, illusions, heartbreak, and cunning revenge, emerging stronger not through naive forgiveness, but through unwavering accountability and daily efforts to rebuild trust. Albert never forgot the lessons learned. Some illusions lead only to ruin, while genuine labor and loyalty stand the test of time. Naomi bore the permanent scar of her near affair with Jack, but found redemption in quiet devotion. Brian abandoned illusions in favor of earnest building, forging a future in architecture. And the final lines of the story lay not with meltdown or heartbreak, but with the quiet harmony of a family that, by choice and consequence, had learned to stand firm against the storms of betrayal.